course, we've heard from two powerful figures in the past 2 hours. Let's start off with the MDC Alliance leader and his confidence. What are people on the street saying?
Well, you know, Shahan, the MDC Alliance leader, Nelson Chamisa, has been really buoyant in the last few weeks building up to this election. In fact, one of the most outstanding statements for me that stands out in as far as Nelson Chamisa's pronouncements are concerned was when he said that the 30th of July, tomorrow, will be Independence Day for what he calls the Second Republic of Zimbabwe. He's so confident of a victory. He says basically he's calling on people to, once they're done voting, they should then gather to celebrate. We are live out on the streets of Harare, and so just for a moment there, Shahan, there was a car that actually drove very close to us, so please bear with me. It's literally a matter of a meter away from me. But anyway, what Nelson Chamisa has been saying is that once people have voted, they should gather to celebrate their victory. And so that's been really the tone. He's been saying that he will go all out and there will be a new government in Zimbabwe come the 1st of August. He's also been warned, though, by the other side, and as far as the ZANU-PF leadership is concerned, to say those statements that he makes should not border on the irresponsible, such as to hype up people to the point of acting in an illegal way and perhaps gathering. I saw the editorial of the Herald talking about this, encouraging people to gather outside the polling stations because the electoral laws dictate that people should not be converged anywhere within a 300-meter radius of the polling station. So the temperature, political temperature, reaching its peak as we build up to the election tomorrow. And of course, we did hear from a blast from the past, that is the former president, Robert Mugabe. We are standing on Robert Mugabe Avenue, if I'm not mistaken. This is where we saw those scenes in November of people pouring onto the streets, marching on the 18th of November as they were calling for Robert Mugabe to fall. That eventually materialized, and today, for the second time this year, he has addressed the media, making some really, strong statements about what he thinks about the status quo. And we can chat about that if you want, Shahan.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Vuyo Mvoko in. He's been following what the former president had to say. So stay with us, Thulas. We'll come back to you in a moment. Vuyo, of course, Robert Mugabe is saying that he didn't know Emmerson Mnangagwa was eyeing for his position until very late. He says he was conniving and he was a fool to have him right next to him.
No doubt, Shahan, he was seething with anger. You can tell that he's not over that episode to a point where he is prepared to even ditch the party he was at the helm of for so many decades. That's how angry he was about what happened in November. Of course, making it very clear that he will not be voting for Emmerson Mnangagwa. Of course, at the briefing that took place, that just ended, in fact, a short while ago, Nelson Chamisa was asked what he thought of what the comments that Robert Mugabe made. Well, effectively saying he couldn't vote for Emmerson Mnangagwa, he couldn't vote for Joyce Mujuru, and that the only person left, seemingly, would be Nelson Chamisa. Even though, of course, it must be underlined that Robert Mugabe didn't quite say it, that he is endorsing Nelson Chamisa. When Nelson Chamisa was, of course, asked a short while ago, he said, well, he welcomes every citizen, and every citizen have a right to express an opinion, and he will meet citizen Mugabe when he is inaugurated after tomorrow's election.
So let's keep with the theme of citizens, and Thulasizwe is on the streets of Harare with lots of people walking behind him. Thulas, we're going to bring you back in. You've heard, hopefully, what Vuyo had to say regarding both comments from Robert Mugabe and Nelson Chamisa. How do people feel? I mean, they have all of this talk a day before the election.
Yeah, you know, Shahan, the mood is one of anticipation. And it's pregnant with expectation, really, because, I mean, if you think about the recent elections, this one is rather different in many ways. For instance, the players are, you know, perhaps on the one side new but old at the same time, because Emmerson Mnangagwa was, one of the top lieutenants of former President Robert Mugabe, and now he steps up to the position of the candidate for ZANU-PF for the office of president. But on the side of the MDC, another big player, Morgan Tsvangirai, is out, the late Morgan Tsvangirai, and has now been replaced by someone who's been in the movement of the MDC right from the very start. Nelson Chamisa steps up as the MDC candidate for president. So there's that new dynamic, but there's also the new dynamic of, certainly to the best of our ability to travel around. I mean, we can chat about that in a moment. We've spent a good part of this morning traveling around what they call high-density suburbs, the townships, where we've been interacting with people. And we'll be bringing you some incredible stories, I must tell you, Shahan, from those interactions with ordinary people. One of the things that stands out is, in as far as physical violence is concerned, you are not seeing that much, certainly in the areas we've visited, areas like Budiriro, the various, sections of Budiriro, where people are saying, look, people are tolerant, a bit tolerant, but, the issues remain in as far as the country being stuck in a rut, certainly in as far as, for instance, the economy is concerned. So there's that anticipation as to, can this be the election, given that in as far as physical violence is concerned, you're not seeing much, if anything, in that regard. Can this be the election that brings about a change and a movement forward? So these people that you see around me here, standing by and really anticipating. I mean, as soon as we set up our cameras, the crowd started gathering, and I'm wondering if I can talk to one or two of the people. If you can step forward, let me talk to you, my brother, about tomorrow's election and what you expect from it. So tomorrow there's going to be an election. For the first time, there's no Robert Mugabe, there's no Morgan Tsvangirai, there's Emmerson Mnangagwa, there is Nelson Chamisa, and a whole lot of other people. I'm not going to ask you who you're going to vote for. That's your secret. But talk to me about what this election means to you. It's been described as historic. Is it historic for you?
Yeah, this election, it recognizes a better change for the future. This election is the future of the Zimbabwe. So it's for us Zimbabweans to decide what we want. If you want a bright future or bad future, it's up to us. But definitely a new Zimbabwe is coming tomorrow. We can't wait for a new Zimbabwe tomorrow.
So how have you found the build-up to the election? Previous elections, we would have been talking about violence. We would have been talking about people being beaten up and people being forced to chant slogans, to attend political rallies, those kind of things. People in hospital, people fleeing their villages. What has it been like this time around for you as a Zimbabwean? Not a view from someone outside, from your side as a Zimbabwean.
As far as I'm concerned, there's a very big difference. In Robert Mugabe regime, there was violence. But I give credit to Emmerson Mnangagwa. He managed to give us peace, to decide. Everyone is deciding what he wants freely. There's no violence. There's freedom everywhere.
Right. So let me ask you that as a final question then. You mentioned the former president, Robert Mugabe. He's been talking today, basically repeating what he said a few months ago, that Emmerson Mnangagwa knows that he shouldn't be in the position that he is in, that what was carried out in November last year was a coup d'etat. The fact that there were soldiers all over the place shows that it was a coup d'etat. And he's been talking about, when he was asked whether he would vote for ZANU-PF, he said, why would I vote for people that tormented me? And he says he prays that tomorrow will bring a better day for Zimbabweans. What do you make of former President Mugabe stepping up from time to time and commenting on the political situation in Zimbabwe? Do you take his views seriously? Do you take them to heart? Is it important for Zimbabweans to hear from him from time to time?
The way they removed him, I can also blame them. Just because they were together in these things. They were making these things together, but at last they just block him. Then they said Mugabe is the one who causes all these problems. So I don't think that was a good way to make it. They should have found a better solution to do it. unlike doing like this. They said they are removing, they are targeting criminals around Mugabe. But so far, I only heard that only one criminal has been arrested. So I don't know where are the other criminals. I don't know.
Right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. What is your name?
My name is Jacob Mpala.
Jacob
Mpala.
Mazrita Baba.
Okay, thanks.
Garai kure nemoto.
All right, thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
So that's the situation there, Shahan. Just one of the many views that we can sample at random. One of the things that you notice is that in as far as people expressing themselves, and we were traveling around the high-density suburbs, there's still a reluctance, it must be pointed out. There are people that you approach to say, hey, what are your views about the election, even without revealing who you're voting for, but what do you think are the issues at stake? And they will simply send you away and say, we're not sure what will happen after the election. But I must say, you are finding that a lot of people are willing to be interviewed and to really say how they see the situation on the ground. So those are some of the differences. And very quickly, before I hand back to you, one of the things that stood out for me yesterday, I did see an MDC advert on ZBC. I can tell you now, few elections back, that simply would not have happened. Seeing an MDC advert on TV saying, vote Nelson Chamisa. I was, my jaw dropped when I saw that. But also, the complaint remains that in as far as editorial coverage is concerned, the MDC Alliance saying that we are not getting the coverage that we deserve as the opposition in Parliament, and they've really been quite critical. The Herald newspaper yesterday carried a half a page, front page advert of Emmerson Mnangagwa, and on the back of that outlined what he stands for, what he's been able to achieve, and then there was a whole host of stories about him. You didn't see any story from the Herald yesterday, certainly, talking about Nelson Chamisa. So some issues remain, but a lot of issues have moved forward, and you are seeing people being able to express themselves a bit more, and we can talk a bit more about the other themes if you want.
So Thulas, we'll get back to you a little later. We're going to bring it back to studio and go back to Vuyo Mvoko in a moment, but joining us